project manager with Skanska. I'm a LA native. I was born in Montebello, spent most of my life here. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, my mother used to drag me on the bus to come to downtown and shop. So I learned about transit at an early age, and I kind of liked building things. So I basically got into the transit industry, built a lot of the San Diego system down there, and I built a lot of the metro system here. I built parts of the Green Line, parts of the Blue Line, Red Line track work installation, both ends of the Gold Line, and now I'm fortunate enough to be part of the team for the Expo Phase 2 project. I have some of our team here because I wasn't sure what kind of questions we were going to get, so we kind of brought a little bit people from our different houses here. I have 2 of our up-and-comers engineers here to help assist with the presentation, Andrew and Patrick. So that's kind of who I am. I'll let them introduce themselves here shortly. Let's see. Skanska Rados is a joint venture between Skanska and Steve P. Rados, a local Los Angeles company. They team together to pool their resources to qualify, bid, and execute the Phase 2 project. And we'll kind of go through this who, what, when, why, where presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew right now, who's going to give you a little bio, and he's going to start the presentation. And if you guys can hold your questions till the end, we're here all night for as long as you guys want.
Thank you, Brian. My name is Andrew Holmquist. I'm a professional engineer with about 12 years of experience in various different industries. I started with a degree in civil engineering from Loyola Marymount, and then I went to Ghana, West Africa for a groundwater well project. Came back and got into computers, got into a design firm a couple of years after that, and into smaller construction, $30 to $50 million jobs, and this is my first mega design build project. So I think my skill set is really enjoying the diversity of the project that we're working on. Born and raised here in LA, born in West Covina, and then have grown up throughout the area too. So it's nice to be a part of the solution. So we're going to talk a little bit about who is involved in the project. Metro is the end user, but Expo is the construction management authority that we actually contract with. We work directly for them. Metro will be the end user, and we are following all of their design criteria. So they kind of wrote the bigger picture spec, and then we interact with over 50 different agencies that have jurisdiction, and then we coordinate with. From the Southern California Gas Company, the Department of Water and Power, Southern California Edison, all the comm companies that have provide all the fiber optic and communication cabling, petroleum companies that have been here since the dawn of time. We have to coordinate with all of them because we cross Sepulveda, Barrington, or other petroleum corridors, a lot of overhead power. And so we not only do the civil design for the metro, permanent metro facilities, we're designing the stations, the bridges, the rail itself, all the under drains, but we also have to coordinate with all of the third-party designers, as we call them. All the power people do their own design. The comm people, the gas companies, they do their own design. So there's constant daily and weekly coordination going back and forth with their design conflict with our permanent facilities. And the what? So this was all initiated through the Los Angeles 3010 plan. Measure R was the initial measure that approved 12 different rail projects, Expo 1 and 2 being both of them. And now we're expanding the Measure R into Measure J, and you'll see that on Bart's agenda here. In November, the county is proposing Measure J to add 17 more projects, a mix of rail and highway projects, and accelerate 15 of those projects. You'll hear a lot about Crenshaw, Regional Connector, the West Side Subway, and then other I-5 widening, 91 widening, and of course the 70th tunnel. And so why are we here? The bigger picture of the 3010 plan, there are 160,000 new jobs. I know our staff. I was the first transit employee in Skanska's West Coast office, and we're now up to over 100 permanent staff in both our design office and our construction office. It's going to take 77 million more transit boardings and reduce the pounds of pollution, reduce the fuel consumption, and reduce the miles traveled. So in our EIR, or not our EIR, in Expo's EIR, they predict 64,000 riders on the Expo line per day. So that'll relieve the 10 freeway of the bigger picture. And I'll hand it over to Pat to handle the web.
Okay, so my name is Patrick McCollum. I've been with Skanska for about 5 years. I started working in New York and about a year and a half ago relocated to the West Coast to work on this project. So as you heard before, I live in Santa Monica. For the past year and a half I've been working mainly out of our construction office doing planning for some of the structural work as a field engineer. And recently I was asked to move downtown and work with the owner a little more as project engineer. And so that's what brings me here tonight. So the first question I'm here to answer is the when. You can see on the board here are some of the project dates that we have. Starting off with our notice of award that we received in March of 2011. Going through when we received the contract, a limited notice to proceed, substantial completion, and final completion that we have planned for January of 2016. When you look at that overall timeline, go from March to January, that's almost 60 months. But the truth is we really are doing most of the work in between the LNTP, the limited notice to proceed, and the substantial completion. We have not yet received the full notice to proceed. As it was mentioned before, there's still some litigation out before we receive the full notice to proceed. But we're moving ahead full speed, and our goal is to finish on time.
Right here's our alignment of our project. We pick up at the western terminus of Expo 1. And actually there are two different projects that cross Venice Boulevard. On the east side of Venice Boulevard, you'll see the Culver City Station. It's an elevated station up on top of a bridge. That's currently active. You can use the Culver City Station. Balfour Beatty is another contractor in the Expo mix. They're designing and constructing a bridge over Venice Boulevard. And we tie in on that west abutment, or the west side of Venice Boulevard. And our trains, there we go. So here, this is Venice Boulevard. We're on the south side of the 10 freeway up until a street called Motor. We cross over Motor and dive under the 10 through a neighborhood called Cheviot Hills. And we're here north of the 10 into the city of Santa Monica, and the terminus will be here at the 4th Street and Colorado, adjacent, or actually kitty corner to the 3rd Street Promenade. So Santa Monica is very excited about our project. The project is a combination of aerial train or acronym train tracks. And so here on Colorado, from 4th Street to 17th Street, the train actually runs right down the middle of Colorado. You'll have a travel lane for cars and buses, and then the train tracks in the middle, and then a travel lane for the opposite direction on the other side. So it'll be a multi-use corridor. And then from 17th Street back to Venice, it's the old Pacific Electric line that was dedicated right away. So sometimes there are streets adjacent to it, and other times it's just dedicated in its own corridor. It has a 100-foot wide right of way, and we're only taking up 26 feet. And so there'll be free landscaping or open space for actually a bikeway to go in parallel. So I heard one gentleman in the back say, bike enthusiast. So it's 7 miles with 7 light rail train stations. There are 7 bridges, which we've started on. 1 parking structure is at Sepulveda. There's also 6 miles of bikeway that will be parallel to the train here starting at Venice, and it'll be, actually you'll take off through Motor. You have to kind of jog around the 10 interchange here. So you could go down National Boulevard, up north on Motor, down Northvale is the street, and then you'll run parallel to the train again all the way into Santa Monica. So you get a nice ride.
Okay, and now we go into the how. So Brian told me I couldn't give away any secrets, but I'm going to go through some of the challenges that we faced throughout the process so far. You saw this slide already. There's over 50 different third parties, owner agencies that we deal with on a daily to weekly basis. This doesn't mean we just get on the phone with them and talk to them, and it's actually getting them to produce. We have designs that they're responsible for that we need to get them to work on and hand it over to us for review, and to Metro for review. And then when we get beyond the design phase, it's actually getting them out in the field to do the construction. And the important thing, you saw before the dates on the board, we need their help so that we can meet our dates. So that's one of the main challenges that we face. Another challenge is the small business community and local workforce staffing. So our project amount is $550 million. Of that $550 million, 20% has to go to SPE firms, and 7% has to go to local SPE firms. 20% of $550 million is $110 million. Trying to find small businesses that are capable of performing $110 million worth of work is difficult. And that's why we've brought on a staff full-time to help us find small businesses that can help us in any pathway that we see as a viable option. In addition to the commitment to local businesses and small businesses, we also have a commitment to local craft. Metro has given us a list of zip codes that we are trying to pull our workforce from. So Measure R was a tax for people in the county of Los Angeles. We're trying to go and hire people within the county so that we're giving back to the community the tax dollars that they've already spent. Right now, our craft levels, we have 57 supervision and 120 craft, and in May 2013, we'll peak at about 400 craft. So throughout the project, we're going to bring these new hires on board. We're going to try and develop them to a point where we can bring them to the next project. And that's why safety is so important. After we bring these people on board, we want to make sure that they're going to be with us for the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that. To date, this is actually a few days out of date. We've worked 529 days without incident. And that's not by luck. That's because of all the planning we do. So we have injury and illness prevention plans. We have safety, health, and environmental management systems in place. And in addition to that, we make sure that all of our management, our foremen, and lead men in the crews also have OSHA 30 training. IFE training is training called Injury-Free Environment. It's a Skanska training that we're doing for 100% of management and 50% of the craft by the end of the year. So that's another goal that we've set for our people, because we know how important safety is. The other reason that we've been able to be so safe with our work is because of the planning. Every activity we do has what's called a construction work plan. This is something where we take an activity, we look at it in a general sense, and we drill down and get into the details of what the work's involved, what work is involved, what equipment we need, what material we need present, what kind of crews we're going to have, how long it's going to take, are we going to do it during the day or at night. And after we develop that game plan, it's that much easier for us to go out to the field and execute. One of the major challenges that we're facing is all the utilities. You already saw all the different third parties that we have to deal with. Each one of those third parties have facilities that run underneath our train in the guideway, bridge footings, pretty much everywhere. This is one snapshot of Colorado and Lincoln Boulevard in Santa Monica, and if you've ever looked at a plan before, each one of those lines, each one of those different colored lines represents a different utility that we need to work around. Just looking at it, it looks, I don't know, about 40 or 50 at one intersection. So this is 400 feet of 7 miles that we're dealing with. Now granted, Colorado's a little more difficult because it's in the middle of the street. Just a picture of what we're dealing with. And one of the ways that we planned ahead to be able to work around all this stuff was to do potholing in the first 6 months of having the contract. So we went out into the street, cut trenches so we could identify where all the utilities were, because as we looked at as-built information, they weren't precisely accurate, to put it nicely. So we went out there, we cut holes in the street, we were able to put our hands on all utilities that we were dealing with, so that we could pass that off to our design coordinators, and they would be able to then design the workarounds, the relocations, the protections of all those utilities throughout the entire line. So after all that planning is done, it's easy to go out there and make it look nice and neat and clean, like you see here.
The challenge of the design is you have 7 miles of a linear project, and the county reviewing your plans, the city of LA reviewing your plans, the city of Santa Monica reviewing your plans. The city of LA is broken up into 9 different reviewing agencies that have to review your plans. So we broke the plans down into 47 different design packages, trying to make those manageable, bite-sized chunks where they can get a review done and continue on. So we set an estimate for ourselves of 18 months of design. We're in our 16th month. We hope to wrap it up by this December and then go into design support during construction as of the first of the year. We also employed some over-the-shoulder reviews with our agencies having jurisdiction. So we meet with them beforehand. We discuss our concepts before we turn in the design, and then they have it for a month while we work on something else. And last but not least, the advanced partial design packages. We pulled out some of those early utilities. Typically the utilities and the roadway, the traffic signals, all goes together in one big package. But we would pull out the water lines and the sewer lines to go ahead of the roadway packages, so we can construct those and get them out of the way of other work. And Brian, want to close us up?
Yeah, well, we thank you very much for your participation and inviting us here tonight. Does anybody have any questions for our team, any subject? Yes, sir.
If that Cheviot Hills lawsuit progresses, do you have a contingency plan time-wise about what you're going to do about that?
Well, right now, since we're under contract, that would be the authority, our client's, decision to make based on the court's decision, and they would roll down to us whatever decision them and the board sees fit. We've had some early discussions with them during the course of the litigation. Now they have not put any constraints on us whatsoever. They want the project to be built, the board members want the project to be built, so we're forging on right now until we hear otherwise.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my partner and I were just there in the Santa Monica area just a couple of days ago, and it looks like there's no way you could just plop 2 tracks at grade in the middle of Colorado Avenue at 4th Street.
Well, what's happening is there's 4 lanes of traffic on Colorado Avenue right now. So we're actually taking 2 of those lanes away. You'll put 2 tracks in the center. And then down towards 17th Street, we actually widen the street there and put a center station platform. So ultimately you'll have one lane in each direction throughout a majority of the length of Colorado Avenue. The terminus station is actually going to go partially into the eastbound lanes of traffic. So they kind of reconfigured the end station.
Like Transit Mall in Long Beach. So.
Yeah.
But you're right, it is skinny.
It's very narrow.
Have you guys come up with a final design of how to get 2 trains underneath the tent?
Yeah, we have.
Yep, go ahead. Yes, we
Yeah.
That's a trade secret, right?
Yeah. It's tight, but it does fit.
Okay, so are you going to narrow them, go to narrow them, or?
Actually, the track centers do narrow down, so we're actually getting a design deviation on the walkway. We're complying with the CPUC walkway width. Metro, we're getting a design deviation from Metro because Metro's emergency walkways are 6 inches wide, right?
Yeah.
But you will be able to run, there was a concern at one point that you would only be able to run 1 train at a time through that.
No, right now we can fit 2 in, and so you'll be good running both headways at the same time through the tunnel.
Okay.
Or through the box, I should say.
Does that use a tunnel boring machine?
No, it's an existing box culvert. It's the old airline used to run through there, so it's a rectangular shaped box structure that the freeway goes over the top. So we went in and we did extensive surveys of the existing conditions. We actually took shots around the whole interior of the box about every 3 to 5 feet, all the way down, because with cast in place concrete, you don't have, you know, exact dimensions from the as-built, and since our tolerance was through this area were extremely tight, we needed to get accurate as-built information.
So, how much space do you end up having in the tunnel itself? I mean, do you have like a foot clearance, or how close to your tolerances?
Well, using the dynamic envelopes of both trains against the boxes, you only had inches of clearance. So, but the dynamic envelope is actually much larger than the train, the circumference of the train itself. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the other day, I saw there was a storage facility right in the middle of the right-of-way. And I wanted to know if they were gonna have some problems with getting all those people out of there, so they could tear that down and go through it.
What location are you talking about?
It was right near the 405 freeway.
We go over that.
You going over it?
That's
Yeah,
it.
Pico Gateway. So right now what we've done is when we got the contract, Metro and the old railroad had leased out a lot of the property that the railroad, you know, occupied. So we spent about 9 months going through the lease agreements and terminating all the lease agreements and having the people vacate the right of way. So at most 98% of the demolition on the project has already been completed. So in the specific location that you're talking about, that storage facility is technically on Metro-owned property, but in our design, we were able to actually just build the bridge just to the north side of the storage facility wall and miss it the whole length of the way.
Is that, there also is construction of the 405.
There is.
And, they're gonna raise the freeway? Or?
No, actually, that's a separate Metro contract that Kiewit is performing. What they're doing is they're widening the connector ramps and the mainline bridges there over our alignment. So we've had, over the last year, we've had a lot of coordination meetings with them because that's a design-build project too. So they're trying to get their work done and out of the way so we can actually come underneath it. For our project, we actually go over Sepulveda, we go under the 405, so we kind of are raised up over Sepulveda, then we drop down a little bit, go under the 405, over Sawtell, and stay over that little shopping center there, and we go over Pico Boulevard, and then we come back down again. Yes, sir.
I'm sort of on the Metro's bicycle roundtable, where we discuss Metro's efforts to get more bicyclists onto the Metro rail and buses. They take a variety of approaches in doing that. And thank you for your comments on the bikeway to accompany the Expo 2 line. We're looking forward to using that. I understand that you're not the Expo Construction Authority, but they have a bicycle advisory committee which has recently raised several design issues having to do with the Expo line and interaction with the bikeway, which was funded differently and not fully integrated, unfortunately, into the planning. And I was wondering if you folks ever interact directly with the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and whether or not the recent issues about putting bridge supports right in the middle of the bike lane so bikes have to go around the traffic, or directing bicyclists through pedestrian plazas where the station entrances are rather than a separate bicycle lane, if you folks are part of that discussion in dealing with those design issues.
We are. Yes, there was, the Westwood is where the bicyclists will cross the station plaza, is where you're speaking of. And so the Expo Authority is studying the kiss and ride is the technical term. So south of the tracks, east of Westwood, there will be a roundabout, a passenger drop-off. And so they're studying the configuration of that passenger drop-off to be able to fit the bike lane And there's also the Fire Life Safety Committee wants that bike lane in that area to be wide enough to be a fire lane. So there are many players that are involved that they're going back to the well to see how many, what is the fire life safety going to allow, what does the cyclist community, advocate for, and then how does that impact the rest of the time. So they're working on that one. That has not been finalized, or we have not been given official direction to change that Westwood crossing. We are implementing the Pico bikeway changes. I don't know if that was the column issue that you were talking about.
I'm not on the advisory committee, so I'm not quite sure what the location.
Yeah, we have addressed many of the concerns that the bike advisory committee brought forth at the last meeting.
So the routes of communication are the committee to the authority and then to you, rather than direct discussions?
Correct. Yeah, we're there in the meeting for just like this technical discussion, but the direction comes from.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to try to say this without opening up a huge Pandora box, but if the issue with the folks over at Cheviot, if that issue comes to be, what's your take on what would you do differently at that crossing, or from your standpoint as an engineer? I mean, everybody kept saying you can't really go under, you could go over. I mean, if you were suddenly told you need to do something different, just
I'm not at liberty to discuss any ongoing litigation since
No,
it's really
I'm
the
just saying,
authority's issue.
right, let's just say the authority comes back to you and says, okay, we need plan B now. What would you think would be the way to approach it?
Video camera.
Again, we take our direction, we're under contract from the authority, so really, we had a concept design that we are advancing to final design for there. If there's any major technical changes or changes to any of the scope, that would come from the authority to us, and then we would respond to whatever inquiry they would have. Sorry, I can't answer your question.
Okay, I'll be phrased a little different. Let's say suddenly money appears. Okay, you're going to go over. How much of that delays your project? How fast can you put a bridge up?
It depends. It
We'll do it
depends
for you.
entirely on how much money, how much acceleration, how long the bridge is, when we got the time. There's many variables. It's not an easy yes/no answer. So I apologize.
That's okay. I'll let you know.
Well, I can ask the question in a way that gets you out of it. If the authority, which is not doing too many change orders, and you guys are fairly skilled, if today somebody said, anywhere along the line, build a bridge that's not scheduled now, how long does it take for you guys, if it's within the flow of the project, would you still be able to make the end deadline if you were told today you got to build a bridge?
A typical bridge construction takes anywhere from 14 to 18 months to build a standard bridge. Don't know the details, if anything, because again, our direction would come directly from the
And the details aren't known in this question. It's just, in the railroad industry, if somewhere in Ventura County the river crests and a bridge goes down, the railroad's got a bridge back up in 2 days or a day.
That's different.
I understand it's different. I understand it's totally different in terms of a right-of-way railroad bridge, but essentially you can do a bridge in 24 months if everything is.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of bridges, is that line gonna stay elevated from Venice and Robertson all the way to Motor Avenue? Or are you gonna dip back down?
It actually comes from Venice Boulevard, it crosses Bagley at grade. And then actually once we get west of Bagley, it starts going up and will stay elevated, not aerial, over National, and it'll stay that way over Motor. Then you will go under the I-10, through the I-10 box, and then it stays at grade until you get to just past Military, and then it goes up and over Sepulveda. Yes, sir.
Getting back to Cheviot Hills, let's assume they are successful and there is a new standard imposed for that intersection. Do you have a rough estimate on the number of other metro, light rail, and busway at-grade crossings that would need to be similarly adjusted? about how many decades that might take?
I couldn't even begin to speculate on that, on the answer to that question. I know we have a scope of work to design and build Expo Phase 2. And we are forging forward with that in expeditious fashion, as Bart says.
Just want to throw you a softball.
Anybody else?
If there was ever a need to do connection north-south, how do you connect existing Expo stations with an interchange, sort of like the red line and the blue line, if it wasn't planned in advance?
Well, future connections, like for like a north-south connection, you can either end at a T crossing, or you can actually build and acquire some additional real estate and actually put a curvature in the line, and then that north-south line would actually connect, and that train would become part of the east-west line also. They don't like to do that because then you're changing headways and timetables.
I'm not so much referring to, you know, a curve on the existing train, but let's say you had a 405 corridor,
Okay.
or the, you know, the valley down to the South Bay corridor connecting into like the Crenshaw line or something. How do you do that at an Expo station if it wasn't really planned?
Tokyo.
Yeah.
You'd have to do, what, an aerial station up above it?
Yeah.
You can't really do a subway underneath an existing station, can you?
Go over, under. Crenshaw's going under, right?
No, it's gonna be transfer. The Crenshaw is a transfer. Little Tokyo will be a reconstruction of the station for regional connector. So that's kind of an example similar to what you're asking about. It'll entail a full reconstruction of the Little Tokyo station. It'll be a complete overhaul. Nothing simple. There'll be a shoe fly temporary track for operations to continue during construction.
So it can be done, but it's just complicated.
Yeah, I mean, they basically take out everything that was put in and put up something entirely new, and in the interim, they install a shoe fly, which is a temporary siding track. And whether there's a temporary platform for boardings, I would assume there must be something planned for that. Sorry to jump in and take your...
Thanks, Stephen. Yes, sir.
Jim's next.
At the end of the track, I think it's 4th Street,
Yeah.
and we noticed that,
Sharp curve.
yeah, are you gonna go dead end right at the street, or are you gonna make a hook into the curve and then?
Well, we were originally going to curve deep into where the Sears maintenance facility was. The city actually asked us to realign that station, that terminus station, so the curvature has been decreased. So it'll actually kind of come down and just gradually curve into that site.
That'll be the end of the track, right?
End of the line, terminus station, 4 blocks from the beach.
Well, isn't there the extension to Hawaii?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What do you think with the amount of grade crossings that will be in that stretch between 17th and Colorado and 4th and Colorado? How fast do you think realistically the trains will be going there? And in a sense, how long would it take to get through that section? Is it going to be like a Long Beach nightmare where with the blue line where it's, you know, held up, or say Boston for the green line down, you know?
How about Gold Line?
And Gold Line East Side Extension to
Steven's in charge of the design on the Santa Monica's section of the belt.
I believe the max operating speed for trains on Colorado is about 30 miles per hour.
Right, but I'm talking about the minimum realistic speed of what will actually happen with cars getting in the way.
So the planned operations will consist of a coordinated green band, which is a series of green lights to get the train from station to station.
Right.
In order to accomplish that, we have to plan a stop at Lincoln, which is a major street.
Okay.
So in order to get a train from 17th to 4th with minimal stops, we have to plan a stop. to give a green band where the train's not being interrupted at the interim traffic signals. As far as how long it will take, I believe, what do we have, like a 4-minute operating headway? And,
Yeah, it's 4 to 6 minutes at peak hours of the day, and then it extends out to about 15 to 30 minutes. But those are operational timetables, and Metro actually established those once we turn the line over to them.
So that's a specification that we have to basically deliver with this scheme. And so we develop a scheme and then we time it out so that it does that, but then we just have to accomplish that goal.
My issue with it is that if we look at the flower corridor for Expo, and there is a theory of the green lights in the band, and I realize that there is the Washington and Flower Junction that also causes issues, but it's not just that junction, and it causes.
Yes. Yeah.
There's not always a green light when you come to it.
Right. Yeah. They're not to be critical of City of LA's ATSAC, which is the mother brain of the city's transportation network, but there are certain kinks in that system that are inherent when they deliver it, and they have to work through all those, and so that's what they're going through. In the city of Santa Monica, there's nothing so complicated as the ATSAC, and I'm sorry, I don't recall exactly what ATSAC stands for.
Automatic traffic.
Surveillance.
Yes, whatever.
Spell it, I'll tell you what it says.
ATSAC.
ATSAC.
So it's
Surveillance and control, automatic traffic surveillance and control.
Thank you, Andrew, for that.
So it's easier to deliver this type of promise in Santa Monica than it was.
We have a more simplistic approach to delivering it. So in LA, they have a demand responsive system. MATSAC is capable of interpreting or collecting data in the real time and then adjusting in the real time to meet all the variables. In Santa Monica, they do not have a system capable of that. So we have to approach it with a very straightforward, like, we're going to time it like this all the time, and it's going to, and you're going to have to stop here, and then you can continue. In LA, it's more idealistic, much more complicated, and I believe they'll accomplish their goal, but it's going to take them some time to work out all the kinks.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a mention though, is you've got 3 different entities. The city of Long Beach had a traffic engineer that was into favoring automobiles. He's still an old school guy, I believe he's still there, and he's not interested in trains. So that's why it takes you 15 minutes for the blue line to make it through Long Beach. But theoretically, there's supposedly changes in the blue line plan down there. But remember, you've got the old school guys. You've got the city of Los Angeles that did figure out the right calculations to move the blue line along Washington, but everything hasn't been actually figured out and up to scale on Flower, I guess it is. The difference is that Santa Monica, I think there's more collaboration. I would have to believe that Bruce from Metro has been working with you guys with the design, and so at this point there's actually a collaboration between Metro, operations, the designers here, and the city of Santa Monica, and they're all working as colleagues rather than a disjunction. The problems with the junction, and there's changes, like it's pretty unusual to have a switch in the middle of a curve. It was originally designed to be parallel, and the tracks, as you know, when you see tracks, they come in like this way instead of the track coming in the middle of the curve. Well, there was design changes, there was personnel changes at Metro, and somewhere along the way when all those changes were made, there's where a lot of the problems came in, and some of those people aren't here anymore to take the blame because they're gone. So hopefully, from the way I get it with Santa Monica, working closely with these guys, and working with Metro Planning, this is going to work in Santa Monica much differently than other places. So we should be in good shape there in Orlando. Anyways, if there's a few more questions, we'll call these guys back. But right now, we're going to go into the part of the program with.
Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you. Give them a hand. Aaron Kelly is with RNL Design, and he's involved in the station planning of the line in, what is it, what street's it at? It's the
Actually,
Stewart?
we're doing the maintenance facility.
Well, that's what I mean. Now, when I say station, I mean the maintenance facility, which is what it is, the maintenance facility. So Aaron's gonna give you a presentation and hopefully everything works the way it's supposed to. Won't be like yesterday where somebody's presentation didn't go up at all. Oh, wow. Very cool.
All right, so this is the flashy picture portion of the evening. I just wanted to point out a couple of the other team members here. John Holler with Maintenance Design Group was the prime of the project. In charge of really the transit planning and the equipment specifications, and we worked together on a number of projects. And then Will Todd was also one of the project architects on the project from RNL. So we've been working on this since about last April. We really got started on the design in earnest, and it's a design bid build. So everybody's going to brainwashed when we leave so nobody can see what's up here. But we did want to show kind of where we're at with the design and some of the innovative things that we've done. This is directly adjacent to the Pico neighborhood in Santa Monica. So Olympic is right here, Stewart, and Centinela, and then this is Exposition Boulevard. So all along this neighborhood and all around us we have sensitive receptors in the EIR. And so we've got IMAX, Lantana, a lot of audiovisual sort of engineering and production places around on the commercial side, and then neighborhoods, single-family homes on the south side. So we walked into the project knowing that we had to kind of get buy-off on the neighborhood side first, and that's the way we started the process, was to sit down and hear what their issues were to begin with. And the primary things were noise of the yard. They had taken their neighborhood group out to the green line and listened to it, and they were concerned about a number of things. And light scope. They wanted to make sure that at night when the operations maintenance is going on, that they didn't have a lot of light spilling into the neighborhood. And then the other was in the EIR, the maintenance facility was loaded down here into the corner, and this green strip is a buffer. And so the building came right down to the edge, and the buffer was a little bit wider out here, and it left the yard exposed to the neighborhood. One of the things we said, first and foremost, was we wanted to move the maintenance facility building to block sound and light from the neighborhood rather than trying to do it with sound walls and all sorts of things that really don't work quite as well as a 30-foot high building. So we did that and got buy-off from the neighborhood to proceed forward with the site plan. And one of the nice things it also allowed us to do was the original shop was a stub-end shop. So with 3-car train sets, we had to move 2 cars out of the way, pull 1 car out that might be buried, and then move the other cars in. So the number of train movements was considerably higher than what we ended up with in the final solution here that can just pass right through. In real quick terms of how the whole thing works, we've got the primary entrance for the operators and the maintenance personnel coming into this parking lot. There's a guard shack, so this is really the primary entrance. And then a fire lane that comes across, runs right adjacent to the main line. We've had a number of coordination meetings with SRJV. And then the delivery entrance comes in here and into a loading area and parking for operators. This is administrative and maintenance personnel, and that's operators. And then we broke apart a few of the other specialty buildings. The main building itself has warehousing, the maintenance and shops, and then 6 S&I, service and inspection bays, and 3 positions for component changeout to do heavy repairs. And then on the north side is just a 2nd floor building, and we'll see that when I show you some of the renderings. And that's where the operators are housed. They've got their lounge and break room and their spaces, as well as administration. Out on Stewart Street is the blowdown, which is where they wash the underside of the train and do heavy cleaning on a periodic basis, and then the wheel truing, when they hit the brakes real hard over the flat spot in the wheel, and they've got to re-true it with a lathe. So that's some specialty operations that happen in this secondary building. Our traction power substation sits right adjacent to it. And then the car wash for the trains on a daily basis come through and get an automated wash cycle and a cleaning platform where personnel are going with vacuum bags and clean out the inside of the train. So that's generally how it works, and then the rest of the yard is basically where the 45 cars that make up the fleet will be stored. So this is a view from the neighborhood. So you can see the houses down here in the corner and the buffer, which we don't have control of the design of that. This is something the city of Santa Monica wanted to administer, and they've hired Neil Arrow, which is a really great design firm, to work alongside there, and we're coordinating with them on how the buffer integrates with the facility. But one of the things we knew we needed to do when we stretched out that building, it's 500 feet, well, 540, something like that long. It's an extremely long building, but to put something like that next to a neighborhood is an architectural challenge to break down the scale of that. And so what we did was, using all those different components, the administrative areas, the maintenance, some of the shops, and the warehousing, we broke that down. So we've got a building that really doesn't impact the neighborhood negatively. And we did a number of things to bring some sustainability measures into it. I'll save that for later. Got a slide that kind of explains a lot of that. And then we did a gesture here to the neighborhood to really make the front door, although it's not accessible from the neighborhood, we put glazing there, and we've got kind of a view into one of the nicer parts of the building itself. So not really turning our backs and saying you got no business knowing what's going on in this yard, but I would open it up to the neighborhood. So you can see the other buildings I talked about. Cleaning platform has a covered canopy over it, which is something that's really helpful for the people that are out there working at night, and cold in the rain on occasion. The train wash, and then the secondary building. That's another view from Stewart here at Exposition. Good opportunity there for some signage to really kind of let Metro's logo and the brand identity show, and then you can see the main line is running right along here. So everybody that's going past this is getting a look into the yard, getting to see some of the operations that are going on versus kind of hiding it all behind walls. That's a ground level view of that same angle, so that's the grade crossing at Stewart. And then this is from the corner of the other side of Stewart in Exposition, so the neighborhood is off to the right here. And just how we basically eroded the corner there, and whatever they do with the buffer is a good sort of pedestrian connection. Brought a green belt basically along the entire south edge of the site. So it's helping make a nice pedestrian environment next to a rail yard. And then that's a nice shot of the lobby. I mentioned the glass that we've kind of incorporated there to open it up. We've got a fairly ornamental stair inside of that, and we wanted to show the opportunities for something nice architecturally to the neighborhood. As you're going westbound on the main line, this is the view into the yard. You can see that second story operations piece. It's kind of a challenge when you're designing a building that's got hundreds and hundreds of catenary poles in front of it to try to make something that doesn't add to the busyness. So architecturally, we tried to keep a fairly simple palette of materials and forms, so you can kind of read through some of those. Let's view on the lobby side of things. We did some fun things with the stairs on this side too, and then that's the entrance into the service inspection and component change-up. So like I said, lots of flashy pictures. Covered the site plan, but let me zoom in onto the building itself. This is a plan of the overall and the main entry into the lobby. So this is that ornamental stair that I was talking about, coming in, elevator, and a break room for the maintenance personnel, and then their changing room and lockers. Going over to the portable equipment and electric shop. That's a view looking back from the service inspection into these repair shops. So real specialized sort of spaces, but direct access into the service bays. Toolbox storage, this is where a lot of the working on the trucks and the wash of the trucks and replacing and fixing things on the trucks for the wheels on the other side of the train, and then some specialty shops for machine welding and component repair. then the maintenance supervisor shop, and then it starts to lead into the, oops, there's a view of that, into the warehouse space, the parts, shipping and receiving. So a number of racks and storage equipment that allows them to densify all the pieces and parts and have it on hand and keep that in a dense sort of efficient footprint. And then looking into the main maintenance bays, we really wanted to open this up. We brought skylights in that brings a lot of daylight down into the area. 24-hour facilities, so sometimes they're working during the day and they can benefit from daylight. We wanted to make sure that this was an energy efficient building. We're well within LEED Gold and we're approaching LEED Platinum, which would make this the first LEED Platinum rail maintenance facility in the country. And it really improves a lot of the feel for people when they're down working in the lower level work areas. They get daylight and some fresh air down there. Up on the second floor, the maintenance administration, that's just a view kind of peeling the roof off and looking into the lobby and the various spaces there. So I won't go into the detail on that, but that's where the supervisors for the maintenance personnel exist. And then this, above the parts storage here, we've got a bridge crane that picks up the air conditioning units and the other rooftop mounted equipment on the trains, and can slide it right onto a mezzanine level. So there's no complications in staging, they just pull the train right in, pull that off, and slide it onto a mezzanine to be replaced or worked on. And we already did that, that's just the upper level of the shop, parts storage. One of the things that we did that was really innovative, and John, you can touch on this a little bit, is the way we handled the upper level work platform for when the maintenance personnel need to work on the pantograph and elements on the top part of the train. With an overhead catenary system, that's a powered line, and there's a lot of danger of electrocution if you're not careful. And so the way that's got a lockout system is that it doesn't allow you to go up onto that platform unless the overhead catenary is deactivated. So probably not doing it justice, John, but there's...
It's top secret.
Yeah. But it's really something that we've done to kind of innovate and best practices that Metro's been willing to accept some of those innovations. We're also using a different way of handling thermal comfort in there. Typically you have a lot of the gas-fired heaters and just flying on natural ventilation or forced air. We're using what's called in the industry jargon a big-ass fan. Basically, it's a gigantic ceiling fan, and it turns at a really slow volume or velocity, but pushes a large volume of air. And you can use it in both directions, and it actually will help heat the space by pushing hot air from the upper levels of the shop down to the work area where the guys are working on the other side of the train. But super low energy consumption and allows us to approach a net zero energy readiness. So if Metro decides to increase the amount of photovoltaic solar panels on the roof, they can reach energy balance where the amount of power that they're drawing to operate the facility is offset by renewable sources. So the meter actually turns backwards, which is nice, saving Metro some money. On the north bar, as we're calling it, the administrative suite, all the rail transportation managers, conference rooms, and you know, some of the executive spaces for the people that run this facility are here. They've got a good view out onto the yard. That was one of the challenges as well. Is there's just a general feeling that they want to have eyes and ears out onto the yard as much as possible. So we placed those program spaces out, hovering over that. We went through some gymnastics to get it to be a second story space, but managed to get them a really great view of the yard. And then as we go into the control suite, this is where it's really critical. We pop that volume out so that they can see a 180-degree view in both directions of all the trains in the yard. So that was something that we're really happy we were able to work into the design. And then the operator space, they're home away from home when they've got a layover between shifts. They're up here doing their thing. There's kind of their operator's room and kitchenette, quiet room if they want to take a nap or read a book, TV alcove, and then their lockers and the fitness room. with a patio that opens up out onto the west side of it. Jumping over to the secondary building, this is the one that's out on Stewart. The wheel truing and the blow-down bays, those are two fairly specialized pieces of the project. We've got a subgrade pit the wheel truing lathe sits down into. So they just pull the train in and bring the lathe up, and it trues the wheels right as they're sitting in place. So it's a fairly seamless operation, and they move each truck along inside of that building. So we can close the doors, minimize the amount of noise that spills out, keep the neighbors happy, everybody wins. And then the blowdown is a real dirty, wet operation. So the same thing, we pull the car all the way in, close the doors, and they go to town and wash the junk off the bottom side of the train that accumulates over miles of travel. It's just got a drain that basically captures everything. It's a posted rail, so there's space underneath to let the people be underneath and wash the underside of the train, and all the junk kind of slides down the drain underneath them. The train wash is fairly simple, just a clean shell, but we wanted to try to daylight it as much as possible. Again, keep the energy consumption down and load up all the equipment so they just pull through at a prescribed rate for the train, so if they can get every nook and cranny washed on the vehicle itself. And then pass right on down to the cleaning platform where they wash the inside of the train, vacuum it out, and take care of the sanding that they use for traction, or refill the sand in that phase of the maintenance cycle as well. And then lastly, down in the guard shack, part of the interface with the main line as well, dealing with our signage. We wanted to make sure we got good Metro brand identity and recognition, and people know where they're going as they come off of Centinela and into the facility. Some maintenance of way equipment and storage here, and a maintenance of way track also that they can use for the main line. So just a few more little close-up shots. The stair, we did some fairly creative stuff with it, kind of radiused it so there's a little bit of a image for the building that people can identify with. And if anybody's familiar with the Van Nuys flyaway, that cable system that they're using there, it's the same sort of deal here. So it's a series of cables that create that guardrail, something at least somewhat interesting architecturally. We knew we couldn't just kind of go in here and slap together a maintenance facility on a low budget. Santa Monica holds to a pretty high standard of architectural design, so that was one of the things that we really had to take to heart. And went before the Santa Monica Architectural Advisory Board, Architectural Review Board, and came away with that, no comments. So we were pretty ecstatic about that. That doesn't happen too often, if ever. So our work on the front end paid off to make sure the neighbors were happy, the neighborhood association was happy, and then ultimately the city was involved all the way through. And then lastly, I want to touch on the sustainability things that we did. In the early programming process, we used what our approach to sustainability is called Design for One Earth measures in alignment with APTA's sustainability commitment. Not just the things that LEED deals with in environmental engineering, but happiness and beauty and social sustainability as well as economic sustainability. So we can build a great net zero building, but if it doesn't pencil out and it costs the agency a lot of money, then it's not really all that sustainable. So this little rose diagram demonstrates where the agencies, all the different Metro Expo folks weighed in and said these are the most important things to us. And so net zero energy was clearly high up on the list, and happiness, there's a lot of metrics for how you quantify happiness, but clearly that was something that we didn't say was unimportant, but there were other things that really trumped it. It was more about building performance, because this isn't as much of a public facility as, say, a transit center, which would put happiness really high up on the list. Health and some of the other sort of values were kind of middle of the road, but that gives us a roadmap for how we make decisions on sustainability measures. So one of the things that we really were happy with is the amount of water that we're capturing and saving. Santa Monica's got some pretty steep penalties for letting your stormwater just run down the drain. And so what we did is capture everything off of the buildings and everything out of the yard. And we have 2 gigantic rainwater storage basins here, and that's going to drain wash and irrigation. And we're offsetting, this is the baseline standard for how much water would normally be used in this facility. That represents the savings that we got for high efficiency toilets and urinals and low flow fixtures. So that's actually the amount of water that we'd be using, and then we're offsetting it with the amount of rainwater that we're capturing. So pretty significant reduction in the amount of water that's being used. A couple other things too, I mentioned the natural ventilation. The big ass fans are drawing the air in from the open doors in the summer, and you know, the thin sort of profile of the building allows them to use the operable windows in the people spaces and let breezes pass through. So Santa Monica's got a great climate to begin with, and they can capitalize on that versus having this really tight building that runs the air conditioning all day. Condition space we also looked at. You know, the shops still need to be at 68, 72 degrees. They can fluctuate a little bit in temperature. The people space really does need to be well separated. So we treated those as fairly highly insulated boxes within the overall building, and we let the space where trains and shops and warehouses are be a little bit more temperamental, you know, wider temperature swing there. So we're only putting energy into keeping thermal comfort area in those blue bars. And then daylighting also was a critical piece of it. So we did quite a bit of things to make sure this wasn't just your average old maintenance yard. And as a result, we're pretty happy with it. The outcome, Expo's really happy. We just finished 100% design. We're working through quality control and making sure we've got a good, tight set of documents that'll go out to the streets. And that's it.
Aaron, what are you doing with the car wash and the blow down water? Is that filtered on site and sent away, or what happens with that?
Typically those systems have about an 80% reclamation, and supplementing what we don't have with the water that's on site. So most of the water stays in a closed loop. So with that.
But the water that you don't use, where does it go?
It goes into a sand oil interceptor and then goes into the sanitary sewer.
Sanitary?
Yeah. Yeah.
How big's the property?
8.2 acres? Yeah.
Did you have to do any mitigation? You said there were audiovisual companies that are adjacent to the building. Did you have to do any mitigation for them to prevent, say, low frequency rumble, which happens on sites like this, on non-buildings like RNL?
Yeah, there's the sound wall that's part of the main line on the north side, so that accomplishes anything that's coming from the yard as far as noise and vibration. We had a sound consultant on our team as well, as did the city, so we had a lot of triple checking of the sound criteria, but we modeled the ambient noise that's in that neighborhood today, and then took readings from the green line, which is the most similar situation to this, and plugged that into the model, and we meet all the requirements for state sound and what's in the EIR document. With the way and a lot of it, like I mentioned before, goes back to what we did here, to put the building in the way and block on the sound and redirect into the yard.
But the businesses are not on the other side of the main line traffic?
The businesses over here are, and then there's a sound wall that actually Montana built their own sound wall, which, fine, you know, it's their criteria that they build it to, and that's already out right now.
I do know of a radio station in Pasadena that built themselves right next to the gold line, and every once in a while you can hear the train going up.
Yeah. ACC.
Excuse me, those curved stairs at the end, when you say that uses a flyaway screening, that's a woven wire, stainless steel wire system?
Yep.
And so those are obviously in open air?
They are.
This is just an aesthetics question, and since the neighborhood association's passed on it, it must be good. But from your earlier renderings, where you looked at it from the neighborhood, it looked like a lot of the wall was just bare concrete. I was wondering if that is true or if there are any plans by Metro to spruce it up a bit.
Since they're doing the buffer, we weren't gonna pump a whole bunch of money into, really making a highly decorative sort of facade. We approached it with the design philosophy that it did want to be a fairly quiet building, clean, modernist sort of palette of materials. There's graffiti coating that is on the concrete, and we've created that transparent part of the lobby, really kind of discourages any sort of bad activities by putting some eyes and ears out onto it. But the buffer itself really is the palette for what they want to do there, and the neighborhood can control that. But, you know, if we put a whole lot of gingerbread on the south side of the building, then it just gets covered up with the buffer, we'll kind of wasted the money. Yeah.
What type of light rail vehicles are they assuming that they're going to be using in the future? Because right now they're using the old Mitsubishi and the old hand-me-down Gold Line train, so what are they going to be using in the future? What they're using on the Gold Line now, or?
I'm going to defer to my experts there.
Well, we've designed it for all of the vehicles, if they brought any of them over to Expo. On the Expo line, the maintenance facility would accommodate any of the vehicles.
But what are they projecting in the future? What are they going to be purchasing? They talked about getting new trains. What are the trains they're going to be getting?
I don't know that they've determined that yet. When they start, it's going to be the Blue Line train, right? But I don't know that they've determined what they're buying. Obviously, that's not part of our scope of work to
I just thought I'd
determine that. So we've designed a facility that will accommodate whatever.
All we could hope for is that they are designed for passengers and not those freight cars on the Gold Line.
Is the green space going to be programmed sort of as an active neighborhood park, or is it a corporate lawn that's sort of not really very usable?
No, they, from what we've gathered, they want the buffer to really be a community park that serves the needs of the people that live directly across from it. So we haven't seen any of the design concepts developed yet, but we know kind of what the criteria is.
And is the community designing that, or?
The community is highly involved in the design of it. Mia Lehrer is the design firm that's doing that piece of it. And they're good. They're really good.
What was that, I can't remember, what was this property before?
It is currently the Verizon yard, their fleet yard, and then the Santa Monica College parking lot.
Is there any hazmat remediation, any problems that you're aware of?
Nothing significant. There's some methane that's down. We're working on the Santa Monica corporate yard as well, and there are some soil issues there, but as we get down into this part of the site, fairly minor, but nothing that's going to require a lot of over-excavation.
How long are they projecting that it'll be finished by? 2016, 2017?
This will be done before the main line comes on.
Aren't there a lot of mature trees in Colorado where there's coming out, and considering the whole mess with the trees, I mean, never heard a huge outcry yet?
Yeah, as far as trees on this site, there really isn't.
No, on Colorado.
Wrong presenter.
Yeah, no, we're not, we only go up to the main line of it, yeah, so that's next.
Okay.
Yeah.
How far along are you? Have you cleared the land and started?
No, we're not out to bid yet, so like I said, everybody's got to get brainwashed before they leave here. On the street here. But we're finished with design, and it'll be going out for procurement after the first of the year, somewhere thereabouts. Anything else?
Well, we could get both teams up if we have questions. Does anybody have any unanswered questions at this point? All the key people here, one of the things I can say from what I understand here is knowing the way the community was responding and all the issues that they had before. It sounds to me like you guys did your due diligence with meeting with the community, all the people that were the outcry, I don't know whether there's a paint shop here, that was one of the concerns that they were.
That got taken off after or during the FEIR process.
So where do they paint the cars in?
Doing that down at the blue line.
Well, it's gonna be stainless steel cars.
Well, you know, I'm not sure what the, you know, unless you know the answer, the new cars, the order that's under procurement right now from, if there's any, if they're supposed to be stainless steel or what they're supposed to be, I don't know what the design is. No answers, okay. But anyways, but the procurement is underway for the new cars, and that's moving forward, and they told the board committees that the provider has generally been on time and has never been late, so it's optimistic that the cars will be there by the time the rail line opens, and there's contingency plans to run it no matter what. So either way, the rail line will open, there will be cars. It may be tight temporarily. No, they'll get cars, it'll work. So anyway, so if that's it. If nobody has any more questions of either the Expo Phase 2 folks or the design folks, then we'll go into a short 25-minute meeting and we'll answer more questions and we'll tell you what's going on. Badly.